Hello. My name is Kara Gotch, and I'm the Executive Director of the Sentencing Project. Thank you so much for joining us for today's award ceremony for the Marc Mauer Racial Justice Award. We're so pleased to be honoring the Youth Arts and Self-Empowerment Project based out of Philadelphia today. They're an amazing group, a youth-led, youth-staffed organization focused on developing youth leadership in the work in the movement to end mass incarceration. It's going to be a really wonderful program, and I look forward to everyone having an opportunity to really dig deep into the wonderful work that YASP is doing and to learn how this program could be an example and a model for the country. For those not familiar with the Marc Mauer Racial Justice Award, it began several years ago. It was created by the Board of Directors of the Sentencing Project in honor of our former Executive Director, Marc Mauer, who had worked with the organization for over 30 years and has left an indelible mark on the movement to end mass incarceration and to advance racial justice in the United States. Marc, I'm pleased to say, as of just about a month ago, has become the president of the Sentencing Project's Board of Directors. And so I'm really happy to welcome him back and welcome him to join me on camera now so we can have a little introductory talk and do some table setting for our program today. Marc?
Greatest thing, great to be here, and I appreciate the ongoing great leadership of the Sentencing Project, Kara.
Thanks so much, Marc.
Mm.
Um, So for those who don't know, Marc
Mm.
first came to the Sentencing Project in the 1980s and really led our research work, and set the stage for the country around the interconnection of race and its implications on mass incarceration. And as we begin to talk about what's movement now and the work of ending mass incarceration now, I think it's important for us to have a little bit of a history lesson. So I wanted to chat with Marc about some of that to help us to set the stage for what we'll later hear from YASP. So one of the questions for you, Marc, is when you came to the Sentencing Project, you really prioritized centering race as part of the public debate around imprisonment and mass incarceration. Why was that so important?
Well, I think it goes back to the background I brought to the organization. I came of age in the 1960s. I was involved in the anti-war movement, civil rights issues. One of the organizations I worked closely with was a farm worker service center in eastern Long Island in the potato fields. And the people working in those fields were almost all black men who came from the South, and they would follow the crop cycle from the South to the North and back again over the course of the year, and just working in very brutal conditions. Then when I began work on prison issues in the state of Michigan, I spent a lot of time at Jackson Prison, which at the time was described as the largest walled prison in the world, 5,000 men incarcerated in a very old and decaying institution. I worked a lot with a lifers group at the prison, and this was a group of white, black, and Latino men who had received life sentences of varying kinds. And as I got to know them as individuals and as a community over time, it became clear that the race and class dynamics of mass incarceration were really fundamental to understanding where that came from and what it looks like. So coming to the Sensing Project, then, we, from almost 4 decades, have been engaged in challenging mass incarceration. We look at the politics, the policies, the practices that have produced and sustained mass incarceration. But it seems to me it's fundamental to do that with a racial lens to really understand the dynamics, the history, and to develop a strategy for moving forward from where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know one of the first reasons I ever heard, became familiar with the Sentencing Project, and that would have been in the 1990s, was Race to Incarcerate Your book, which really I know personally and from many colleagues in the field was a foundational book for a lot of folks. And actually last year, I think I'm right in saying that was the 25th anniversary of the publication of that book. Um, but the statistics that people know now about lifetime rates of imprisonment or likelihood of imprisonment for Black men in particular, a lot of that started with your research to really highlight that. And it really sort of was an important marker, I think, for the field.
Thank you. And one of the things about that book, I certainly didn't invent studying race and imprisonment. An awful lot of people are very well aware of that for a long time. What we were able to do with Sensing Project was to put some numbers on it so that everyday people and everyday policymakers could understand it in a way that you couldn't otherwise when you just saw stories on the nightly news or something like that. The fact that nearly 1 in 3 young Black men was under some form of criminal justice supervision. Those are shocking figures, but that was the situation back in the 1990s. And shocking as it was, at least it helped call attention to those issues for many people who hadn't been focused on it very much for a very long time.
So, given what we know, have learned in 40 years, and at least for since the start of the Sentencing Project, we're now in a changing political environment. The Trump administration has prioritized what harmful and troubling narratives around crime and punishment in the country today. What do you think, taking into account what we've learned, what we know, and where we are now, what do you think the future holds? And where are there opportunities that you see for hope?
Yeah. Well, we're in a very challenging moment for our country, not just on criminal justice issues, but for our democracy, for upholding human rights and the like. And we can't sugarcoat it. It's very troubling, and we don't know exactly how far it's going to go. Um, Nonetheless, I think there are reasons for hope for continuing to advance our collective work on mass incarceration. If we look at what's changed over the last 20 years or so, mass incarceration, because of the work that we and so many others have done, mass incarceration is out there on the national agenda. You may like it, you may hate it, but people know what mass incarceration is today, and it took quite a while to get there. We see encouraging signs. There's increasingly numbers of young people who are growing up watching films like 13th and others and becoming very outraged about mass incarceration and what they see in their lives. Increasing leadership in communities of color that have prioritized these issues for a long time, and leading organizations with formerly incarcerated activists who bring their personal histories and their professional insights into challenging mass incarceration. So the community of advocates that are working on these issues challenging, I think, is much stronger than it's been in a very long time. Even though there are many challenges, it is stronger. We also shouldn't overlook the fact that in the last 20 years or so, half a dozen states have reduced their prison populations by 30 or 40% or so, and that's not trivial. It's a significant decline, and we have some sense of how they achieved that. But it shows that it is possible, and we need to work with those states and others to see how do we extend what we've learned from that, how do we promote public safety that doesn't rely on mass incarceration. Um, And finally, these challenges are not new. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, that was the era of the war on drugs and war on crime and massive prison construction. Things were pretty grim for the advocacy community then, and it felt like, we were just trying to hold back from, this onslaught that we saw. But collectively, we did manage to do the education, the advocacy, the research that helped to change the environment. And so we now have at least broader numbers of people, broader numbers of coalitions looking at these issues. So, yes, we need to deal with the problem of today, but we want to keep that vision of the long term because that's what sustains us as we do this work today.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the sort of cornerstones,
Mhm.
I think, of the Sensing Project's work has been its public education work and its ability to translate research and into kitchen table discussions, right? Where people now know what mass incarceration is, and they just know, maybe if they haven't memorized the numbers like some of us have, they know that the numbers demonstrate a big problem. And that's really important. And I share, my area of hope is around similar to Mark's, is the growing community of advocates and partners working on this space, and particularly in the youth justice space, because what we know is young people that's where we should be investing, to make sure people have the resources and support that they need, young people to be successful in life. And that's why I'm so happy to have YASP with us here today. And I want to bring on two of their leaders to come and talk to us, Sarah Morris and Dawood Harrington. I'm going to invite you to come on and talk to the folks about your wonderful program and to share a little more.
Thank you so much, Kara and Mark. And Doug. Oh my gosh. I'm hoping y'all
You
can
look
hear
like,
me because I'm getting a
yeah, I can hear
Wi-Fi
you. It looked like you froze for a little
message.
bit, but I think you're good now.
Okay. Sorry, we think that Comcast is constantly trying to undermine our work here, but hopefully my Wi-Fi continues. We're just so honored to get this award. Sentencing Project has been such a wonderful national partner that, always really tries to support folks on the ground, and follow the lead of local groups, and we have so appreciated that. This means, and it's especially meaningful to us this year as we enter our 20th year as an organization. We started as an organization that was me and four other young people sitting around a small table, with a $6,000 a year budget, and we've grown immensely in that time. And you're going to hear about the programs that we have launched in the last few years. Daoud is texting me that he is freezing, so we're dealing with a little bit of technical issues. Hopefully he's able to join us. But we are so honored to get this. I'm hoping Daoud unfreezes. Are you with us, Daoud? Okay, well, I think he may be hopping off and trying to hop back on so that his Wi-Fi will work better. Um, but yeah, this means so much to us, and one thing that Dawood and I wanted to really ground us in as we accept this award, is the legacy of some of the leaders who built YASP, who are no longer with us. Dawood and I are the longest serving folks on YASP's team right now. I was one of the co-founders. Dawood has been on the team for 11 years since he joined us at 17 years old. Um, and we really wanted to dedicate this award to Terrence T.A. Williams, who was a youth organizer with YASP, who was tragically killed in 2017, and Josh Glenn, who was one of the co-founders of YASP, who we lost in 2023, who passed away. And TA and Josh, I'm going to say a few words about Josh. Dawood had wanted to say a couple words about TA, so if he rejoins us, hopefully he'll be able to hop in and do that. But the main thing I just wanted to highlight, I could talk for an hour about Josh Glenn's legacy to the movement to end mass incarceration, not just locally, but across the country. Similar, to Marc and Race to Incarcerate and the Sentencing Project, we started doing this work, before it was as much of a part of the larger mainstream conversation as ending mass incarceration has become. And Josh really paved the way in the fight for youth justice, the fight to end cash bail, and the larger fight around abolition here in Philly. And the thing I really want to lift up as we jump into hearing about our different programs is that every program that YASP has that, if you hear someone on our staff say is the first in the country, first in Philly, first in the state, that program is here at YASP because Josh said, is this going to help one more young person? Then we should do it. We kind of built the plane as we were flying it and really focused on while we're fighting to dismantle this system, young people who are caught up in it every day need our support, and we're going to get as many young people out of the system as we possibly can. So that's kind of like the grounding of the work we do. And with that, I'm going to invite Morgan to put on a video for us that we have of a little bit about some more of our members of our team who aren't able to be here today. This is from our end of year campaign at the end of last year, so I will turn it over for that.
You've been with us from the beginning.
Or you just learned about us recently.
You might not know all of what we're up to here at YASP. Allow us to reintroduce ourselves.
We are a youth-led, intergenerational organization building a movement to end youth incarceration.
At YASP, we support young people who are directly impacted by the criminal legal system through our creative arts and empowerment workshops,
participatory defense hub, and court support,
and restorative justice diversion programming.
We also run issue campaigns around ending the practice of prosecuting young people as adults. We have a paid fellowship for emerging youth leaders. We have court watch programs where these youth leaders keep up with other young people's cases in Philly. And we have a letter writing program where participants can stay in touch with us even when they are transferred to the state system.
YASP started in 2006 as a project run by 5 volunteers.
18 years later, we've grown into a team of 6 full-time staff and 10 part-time staff. Some of our team have been here since the beginning, many incredible people have joined along the way, and some of the amazing folks who started this organization have transitioned into living out their own dreams in other ways.
If you contribute and help fund our work, you are also part of the YASP team. We couldn't do this work without a constellation of our supporters.
Thanks for being in this movement with us.
From all of us at YASP, thank you.
you're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was Dawood is we're just doing some live troubleshooting here. Dawood just came over to my office since the Wi-Fi wasn't working on his computer. So I said a few words about Josh. If you wanted to say a few words about TA before we jump in.
Yes. Yeah, about TA, I just wanted to say and bring
Apologies.
just his aura, energy in this space. TA was just like a great, lovely person, a great person to be around. He was always just able to bring smiles to people's faces. And one thing I could say is the youth in our communities truly love TA. No matter, you could just be having the craziest down day, but if you was able to be around TA, his aura and spirit was just great enough to lift it up. And not only that, his organizing work and his impact to this org was a beautiful thing for us. So I just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Dawood. And so with that, we wanted to dedicate this award to Josh and TA, and we're gonna turn it over and thank you all for helping us honor their legacy and the work that we do every day. And we're gonna turn it over to Hannah and Felix. Hannah Mason is a Stoneleaf Fellow who just completed a report on the first 2 years of Healing Futures that she's going to share about, and Felix Rosado is one of our incredible program managers of the Healing Futures program. So I'm going to turn it over to them to share a little bit about Healing Futures.
Thanks, Sarah. Hello, I'm Hannah Victoria Mason.
For the past 2 years, I've been a Stonely Emerging Leader Fellow hosted at YASP, and I'm the author of the report, Healing Futures, a Restorative Justice Response to Philadelphia's Youth Punishment System, which was released in September of this year. In 2021, YASP started Healing Futures, which is Philadelphia's first restorative justice diversion program and one of just a few of its kind in the nation. Restorative justice diversion is a unique type of diversion in which the district attorney's office refers a young person's case pre-charge or pre-petition to a program like Healing Futures, where they are then taken through a comprehensive process of accountability, which looks like teaching them about personal integrity and values, helping them to make better choices and give meaningful apologies, and ultimately preparing them to meet face-to-face with the person they harmed in order to make amends and create a plan for repair. The report, which the link was just dropped in the chat, which you can also find on the YAS website, shows that the practice of restorative justice diversion, like Healing Futures model, is overwhelmingly effective in producing more positive outcomes than the traditional criminal legal process. 100% of those surveyed and interviewed for the report, which included all of the responsible youth, persons harmed, and their respective families and supporters from the first 2 years of the program, 100% said that they were satisfied with their experience and the outcomes of the restorative justice diversion process, with most of them also saying not only would they recommend Healing Futures or a restorative justice diversion process to someone who had a similar case or situation, but that they would also go through another restorative justice process themselves. So the restorative justice diversion process gives participants a variety of possible positive outcomes. For the young people, that might look like support for their personal growth and development, whether that's for job placements, educational opportunities, or just connecting to other resources or young people. For the people harmed, they are more likely to receive restitution. They are able to get vital questions like, why did this thing happen to me? And they're able to reclaim some agency and be included in the restorative plan of the young person. And then finally, for families and community members, they are able to get some relief and be hopeful knowing that the young person's case was able to be resolved and held while they remained in community. Healing Futures has also demonstrated low rates of recidivism. In the first 2 years of Healing Futures, only one young person of the first 30 young people who participated and completed the program was rearrested and later convicted or adjudicated delinquent, which gives us a 3% recidivism rate. So it's not just that Healing Futures, people are satisfied with their experience of Healing Futures, but that Healing Futures actually ultimately makes us safer. In all, Healing Futures has helped more than 60 young people, and is continuing to position itself to expand, not only to take on more cases, but to take on cases of more serious harm. Restorative justice diversion offers a wealth of possible positive pathways for personal, communal, and social repair. This report is just the beginning of a growing body of evidence that confirms that restorative justice diversion and diversion works, and that it should be seen as a serious, not just an alternative, but something that we should start to see as a default and a solution on the first chance for young people. But you don't just have to take it from me. I'm going to pass it to Felix, who is one of Healing Futures program co-managers and facilitates a lot of our cases.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank everyone who joined us here this afternoon. We're honored to be here to share space with you all, virtual space. I am the program manager at Healing Futures, and I also facilitate cases myself, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's actually my favorite part of the job. I've been doing this for 3.5 years now, after coming home from prison myself. I did 27 years of a death by incarceration sentence that began at age 18 and ended at age 45. And I was able to come home through Governor clemency and jump straight into this job where I have the opportunity to now uh, go back and talk to my younger self every day when I come to work. And I'm one who who went through every part of the juvenile punishment system in my teenage years. I did uh, a type of diversion. It wasn't restorative justice. I did home arrest. I did fines. I did community service. I did time in detention centers and in placement. And I can say without any doubt that all of it made me worse. I wish I had an opportunity that the young people we serve here at Healing Futures have today. Uh, so I get to witness the transformation that happens when we bring responsible youth together with the people they harmed in a circle with community members, supporters, and two facilitators from the Healing Futures team. We sit down and we do the work that doesn't get accomplished in a prison sentence, the work of real accountability, active accountability. We allow the person harmed and everyone else impacted to talk about what that has been like for them. So the responsible youth sits there and listens to that. And then we give them an opportunity to apologize. And together we all come up with a plan that the young person then has to do to put things, as we like to say, more right in action, in actual action. We call it doing sorry. And so you heard all the stats and the outcomes of our program, but what can't really be captured in numbers is the real difference we're making in people's lives. We're not pulling as many people out of the system as we'd like to. We're getting 15 cases a year, maybe, sometimes 20, uh, which is really small compared to the amount of young people here in this city alone who are getting caught up in the system. But for those young people and for those families, it makes a big difference. And so as we continue to try to do the work of dismantling this beast, it's really important to us to save as many people and to change as many lives as possible. And I'm just grateful to be able to do this work and to have the opportunity to provide someone something that I myself didn't have the chance to have.
Thanks, Felix. Now we're going to pass it to our coworkers and the creative arts team, Sienna and Jet.
How y'all doing? Thank you, Hannah, Felix, for that passing it over. Yeah, I want to start first by saying I myself was incarcerated as an adult, charged as an adult when I was a juvenile when I was 16 years old. Ultimately did 7 years, and that's how I was introduced to YASP. I was in the workshops in the adult facilities, the adult correctional facilities as a juvenile, and that's where I met YASP and participated in the workshops, the creative art workshops, as a incarcerated person. And then throughout my time, stayed in contact. And when I came home, kind of excuse me. When I came home, I got back in contact with Yash and ultimately started working here. And I always like to share the backstory of how I came across Yash, because it was as a incarcerated young person charged as an adult in the adult jails, participating in the programs, and now it's like a full circle moment, actually facilitating workshops in those same jails. And yeah, when I first started participating in the workshops in the adult facility, at first wasn't really, like, I was 16. I didn't never really my tapped into that side of myself, and was really for selfish reasons. I wasn't participating in the program for anything that had to do with art or bettering myself or anything like that. But quickly, like I bought into the program. I bought into what Sarah and Josh and a few others was coming and facilitating with us. And yeah, and now, full circle moment. But I think that the workshops are so important because of that alone. Like, if it wasn't for me coming across Sarah and meeting Josh and people like that in these workshops, I wouldn't have been doing this work in the first place. I probably, wouldn't have learned the things about myself that I've learned today. I wouldn't have became the person that I've became today. And I see that impact, myself now facilitating workshops with the young people. I see young people who they first come in and they're like, I'm here, I'm 15 years old, I'm 16 years old, I'm charged as an adult. They're still figuring themselves out, they're still teenagers, they're young people. They don't, when they first come, they like, I don't know what this program about. And then months later into the program, they like, look, thank y'all, like I appreciate y'all, like y'all making this way easier for me. Like I don't know, uh I don't know how I'll be getting through this like without y'all helping me out in this process. And we try to like always like help young people navigate the court system, help them, figure out about their case, because a lot of the young people that we work with, well, the young people that we work with are juveniles getting charged as adults in the adult facility in state rural, and some of them are getting charged as adults, but they're housed in a juvenile detention center here in Philadelphia. So a lot of them do not know like how the system works at all. Like, so we try to help them like figuring that out, thinking about their future, doing, deeper work, diving into their inner self. And yeah, just supporting young people and being there with them in whatever way that may be. I think like the workshops for me meant so much because we don't, the juveniles, they don't get a lot of programming in these adult facilities. They don't get they get the bare minimum of schooling, which the school system is a little different from how a regular school system works in a school department of Philadelphia. So they don't get much programming in these facilities. So yeah, so I think that's important for the young people. And I seen that Sarah said we close to the 5-minute mark, so I don't know how long I got, and I'm going to pass it to Sienna to see if you want to share anything.
Thanks so much, Jet. I'm Sienna Fawnin. I am the co-coordinator of the Creative Arts workshops, and I have been so honored to serve in this role with Jet, and it's been really amazing to work together. I just started in this role a few months ago, and it's been a really transformative experience already. I think going in, I imagined that it would be a lot more challenging to build trust with the young people and to make them feel comfortable to really invest in the workshops and be vulnerable together. But that's really not been what I've experienced. The first day that I went in, a young person who was in solitary confinement sang Alicia Keys for me. And another one told me about his young daughter and how anxious he was to return home and be a good father to her. And every week I'm honored to hear young people share stories like this and share about what's on their mind, things that they're worried about, things that they're hopeful for, their vision for themselves and their future. And I think these workshops are a really important place where young people are able to sustain these visions of the future in a system that's really designed to dehumanize and erase them. And yeah, these workshops are a space where our participants know that they're cared for and that their voices are significant. not only do we show up weekly to do creative arts workshops in the jails, but we also do court support. We connect with their families and their attorneys, and we testify to their full humanity in a system really designed to reduce them to a single event. And over the past 20 years, YASP has been doing these workshops, and we've been honored to share and have a lot of really beautiful work created. We've actually published an anthology of the past 20 years of this work just last year. It's called I Am Not a Number, and it's a really beautiful way for the general public to get to know these young people who are tried as adults, to hear about the impact of the system on them. And at a moment where national leaders are really advancing dangerous rhetoric around young people, I think it's a really powerful antidote that I encourage people to check out. And with that, I'll pass it on to Aquila.
Thanks, Sienna. Oh,
Go ahead. Aquila and I are going to talk together. Thank you, Sienna and Jet, for sharing. Aquila and I are going to share together a little bit about YASP's Youth Participatory Defense Hub and our advocacy and organizing campaigns. Aquila is a graduate of our Hub Fellowship here and is co-facilitating our Youth Hub right now. Just to share a little bit about what participatory defense is for folks who are not familiar, it's a model that was started by a group called Silicon Valley Debug out in San Jose. They've spent the better part of the last decade training different organizations and different groups of people around the country to do participatory defense work, which is basically like supporting young people and their families navigating the court system. And in 2019, they reached out to us at YASP to launch the first youth-led, youth-focused participatory defense hub in the country. So we launched the hub in April of 2019, and we've been doing that work, supported hundreds of young people and their families navigating the court system since then. And I'm going to pass it over to Aquila to share a little bit more about what we do every day at the Youth Hub.
Hello, everyone. I am Aquila, and like Sarah said, I recently graduated from YASP Hub Fellowship, and I now co-facilitate our Youth Participatory Defense Hub, which is also, again, the first youth-led in the country. And so what youth participatory defense means to me is really having young people actively participate in their own defense. And so how we do that is we hold a weekly space. Sometimes young people join, sometimes a parent or a sibling. The hub supports young people and their families who are navigating the court system through court support, where we can provide system education. I'm not talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just act like I'm not here. I'm just gonna help you a little bit.
Thank you. You can't even see me. Okay. So we provide different court supports where we provide system education to young people and their families. Some young people don't understand the different hearings that their cases may go through, or the different terms that their lawyers or the courts may use. We held community fundraisers to hire an attorney for a young person, and we attend court for them so that they can feel supported. We do a bit of mitigation work where we write letters to judges, and we create social bio videos, which are videos we create for young people's defense to show the judge that the young person is worthy of much more than just their charges. For me, I was incarcerated at the age of 15, and I had to attend court by myself. I mean, I had a public defender, but I didn't have a team to speak up for me or support me. I had to do a lot on my own. And it was so many other young people who didn't care to know what was happening to them or care to take the initiative to be fully invested in their own cases. And so YAS Participatory Defense Hub really empowers young people and their families to take charge and really understand things while not feeling so much alone.
Thank you, Aquila. And I want to build on something that Aquila is lifting up about the way the hub supports folks in feeling less alone in the system. That's such a critical part of the work that we do. And, one of the things that's unique about YASP is that we are focused on the big picture, dismantling youth incarceration, and what can seem like the smaller picture of like the day-to-day ways it impacts young people, but is huge because it's people's lives, and the system destroys and tries to destroy young people's lives every day. And just a small example, from this morning, Aquila and I went to court for a young woman who's been coming to the hub for the past year and a half, who was being sentenced this morning on the case that she had originally started coming to the hub for support on. And she was facing potential jail time or probation. She's a young mother. She's 21. She's a single parent raising a beautiful little girl who's going to be one soon. And she was terrified coming to court, not knowing if she was going to go to jail or not. Me and Aquila were there with her. We had letters of support. We had been, working with her to set up different things that she needed to show the court. She was sentenced to probation. She's home and with her daughter. But the part that I really want to highlight of what it meant to be there, she showed up to court on time, ready to go, spent all morning getting her and her daughter ready. And they told her, you can't come into court because children aren't allowed in the courtroom. The judge won't allow your child in here. She has nobody to watch her child. She grew up in the foster care system. She doesn't have family in Philly. She doesn't have anybody to show up at court with her without us being there. And Aquila played babysitter, sat in the hallway, made a new best friend with her daughter. I went in the court, spoke on her behalf, was there for her sentencing. And then she was told, okay, you've got probation. Go report to the probation office a few blocks away. I walked her over there, went with her to get set up. They told her at the door, you can't come in with that child. Children aren't allowed in the building. And she was told she has to report for probation today. So we flagged down a supervisor who was on a smoke break. I talked to them, explained the situation, and we were thankfully able to get that person to help us navigate setting her up, sitting with us on the bench outside and setting her up to be able to call the probation officer later today. But that's just a small example of the everyday ways that participatory defense is so critical in people not fighting the system alone, because she could have gotten a bench warrant because she wasn't allowed in the courtroom. It could have impacted what happened in her case and her whole life so much differently because the system is so hostile to people and set up in a way that makes it hard for young people who are doing everything we ask of them to be able to get the outcomes that they need at court and to be able to show up for the process how they're expected to. So that's just one example of the many ways that the hub impacts young people and their families every day in Philly. Part of the hub, that also is really important to lift up is that we're working to support young people and their families in fighting their cases, and that's part of us building a larger movement to fight this whole system. So in 2020, shortly after we launched the hub, we launched what we call our Hub Fellowship, which is a year-long training program for young people who've been through the hub for support or who've come to our workshops in the jails and come home, or who've connected with us through Healing Futures to be able to get trained as organizers and leaders of this movement and be working in our larger term vision to end youth incarceration. So as we said, Aquila graduated with our third cohort this summer. And those young people and the young people that we're training is part of our vision of what it looks like to have a truly youth-led movement that is fighting for a different kind of future. One of the main focuses of that organizing and advocacy work for us, as we've mentioned a number of times throughout sharing, is ending the practice of charging kids as adults in Pennsylvania, which is known as direct file. And Aquila, before we wrap up, is going to share a little bit about what direct file is and why it's so important to keep children out of the adult system.
Yep. So direct file is the process where young people are being charged as adults. We simply know that kids are not adults. And when a young person goes through the adult criminal system, they endure traumas. In some cases, young people could be put in the same prisons as adults, and then they don't get the right supports that they typically would get at a youth facility, like less access to educational programs, therapy, physical activities that are normally in juvenile facilities. There are studies that show that youth are more likely to be assaulted, more likely to commit self-harm if they're in if they're in a juvenile facility. Youth are put in solitary confinement in these adult prisons. And they also leave with adult convictions that can't be expunged, that will ultimately make it harder to get a job, get housing, or even loans for college. And we also have seen higher recidivism rates when youth do come home. And so We have a legislative in Harrisburg right now to end direct file. We have a House Bill 1381 that has been introduced by Rep. Chris Rabb, and we're working with local and statewide partners to advance that work and really push for this change. And so we do that by going to Harrisburg, meeting with different legislators, and bringing young people's stories and experiences for them to see and hear the impacts themselves.
Thank you, Aquila. And I want to make sure you see that in the chat, you got someone asking if you're going to law school because you sound like a defense attorney. So something to consider. We could definitely use more radical attorneys out here fighting this system. And as Aquila said, we've got House Bill 1383 that we're supporting that would end direct file in Harrisburg. We also, we've been doing this work, as we said, for almost 20 years. And we've seen some progress, but we've also had to adapt our strategy at different points. And it's very difficult in Pennsylvania to get legislation passed. Harrisburg is divided between Republicans and Democrats. It's a pretty conservative legislature. And so we've, also focused on what's happening here in Philly. And we're part of the movement to get a district attorney elected back in 2017 who said he would treat kids as kids. Unfortunately, that has not, we still see hundreds of young people tried as adults every year in Philadelphia. So we're doing a lot of work to make those commitments real, and to really get to a place where no children are charged as adults, whether it's in Philadelphia or across the state. And right now, we run a court watching program to really be able to keep track, because the DA's office and the courts don't share publicly about how many kids are tried as adults. And often, even when kids are transferred out of the adult system in Philly, the adult case is used as a threat to get them to plead guilty. Basically, they're told, if you'll plead guilty, we'll send your case to juvenile court, but if not, you're going to stay in adult court and face state adult prison time. So we're working locally as well to demand that in what is going to be his third and he says final term, that DA Krasner make good on those commitments and treat kids as kids, and not use adult charges as blackmail, as a threat to get kids to plead guilty before they have their day in court. So those are some of the things we're focused on. We're an unapologetically abolitionist organization that doesn't think that this system serves young people really in any way, and we're fighting to build something different. And we know that the young people who are caught up in the system right now can't wait until there's something different. So we're also fighting to keep as many young people out of the system every day as we can. And with that, I'm going to thank our team for sharing about our work, and I'm going to pass it back to Kara for the next section of today. And thank you again to the Sentence Project.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Aquila, and Felix, and Sienna, and Dawood, and Jet. And if I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. Thank you, YASP. It's been really great hearing from you, and particularly of how multifaceted your approach to your work is, and how deeply meaningful it is for the individuals and the young people that you're working with. I wanted to bring some of you back on to have a quick call. So I think Felix and Sarah and Stella and Jet and Dawood are joining me. We're just going to have a couple questions before we wrap up. I know that there's been some questions in the chat. So one of them having to do with restorative justice, which aligns with one of the questions I wanted to ask about your Healing Futures work. Which is, can you just talk a little more about what restorative justice is? I've heard, and I think probably people in the audience are familiar with cutbacks that we've heard about from the Department of Justice, and the restorative justice programs are particularly being hit hard by some funding cuts from the Department of Justice, federal funding cuts. But if you can give some idea for folks of what restorative justice is, and how does Healing Futures fit into this national conversation around restorative justice?
Shall I? All right. So the term restorative justice and the field as we know it today emerged in the 70s as an attempt to fill some of the gaps that were perceived as being gaps in the criminal punishment system. But the values, the principles, and many of the practices used in restorative justice today go back centuries. Uh, it's based on indigenous practices. So in that sense, it's not new. It's a way of returning to the old, to something that worked before what we now know as the criminal punishment system. So I would call it a pre-colonial, pre-slavery, pre-genocide way of doing justice. It's a way of doing justice that seeks to heal harm by involving those directly impacted by it, including the people who caused it, which might sound revolutionary, but it's common sense. When you hurt someone, you have an obligation to put things more right. And that's essentially what restorative justice is about. We use one particular process at Healing Futures called the circle, where we sit down and there's a ceremonial element to it. We sit in circle, we have a centerpiece, we pass a talking piece from person to person, and everyone holding it is invited to speak while everyone else is invited to listen. And it slows down the pace of the conversation so that everyone is heard and respected, and so that we could come to a better place together. And so in terms of the national landscape, yes, it's really dark right now. We saw a few glimmers of light yesterday in some of the election results, and we're hoping to build on that. But yeah, this kind of work is under attack. Anything that seeks to level out the playing field, to bring justice and fairness to poor people of color is under attack right now. And so we need to not hide or water anything down, but it's a time now to double down on our efforts, to work harder, to speak more, and to educate more. It's restorative justice isn't as widely known or recognized in this country as we would like it to be, even in communities most impacted by harm and violence. And so it starts with reports like the one Hannah just authored and other attempts to educate the public about restorative justice, which the Sentencing Project is trying to do as well. But yeah, we need more of it. It's not meant to replace the criminal punishment system. We want that to go away completely, but it's going to take a lot of experiments around the country to create the kind of communities that are safe, that are healthy, and that give us an opportunity to hold ourselves and each other accountable. And so restorative justice is just one of those, where we envision people having a menu of options to turn to whenever harm occurs. And right now, unfortunately, we only have two: call the cops or do nothing. And the vast majority of people actually do nothing.
Thanks, Felix. Did anybody else from the YASP team want to respond to that? I see, in the chat, someone had asked, why isn't there more people being sent to programs like Healing Futures instead of the court system? Is that financial? Is that political? Any thoughts on that?
I can jump in if nobody else wants to, which is just, and thank you for breaking all that down, Felix. I think that it's both financial. Hannah's report really shows how successful restorative justice is, and the kind of model that Healing Futures uses is, and to hold more. It's also a very time and energy intensive process. We're not sending young people through just like this, like the conveyor belt of the carceral system. Our facilitators do really deep work with young people to get to know them, with people harmed, to get to know them with their supporters. So one fundamental thing that we need to grow is more funding. We need funding that is multi-year, that can really support this team to be able to bring on new facilitators and train them for the long haul, and other organizations in Philly that do restorative justice work. And then the other piece, which is also lifted up in Hannah's report, is that right now there's a lot of cases that aren't allowed to come to restorative justice based on restrictions from within the DA's office around, for example, gun cases are not allowed to come to restorative justice. We think that the success we've had with the still pretty serious kinds of harm that have already come to restorative justice through Healing Futures really shows that more serious cases should be eligible for this kind of diversion, and we really want to see that as the next step that makes it possible for even more young people to be kept from the system and for restorative justice to become the default, as Hannah was saying.
And does that include simple possession of gun cases aren't allowed to come to diversion programs?
Nothing involving a gun, which one thing about restorative justice is that there has to be an identifiable person harmed. So just simple gun possession may or may not be able to be appropriate for restorative justice, but maybe for another kind of diversion. We would love to see other options for diversion for those. And for a case, right now, if it's a robbery or an assault or the kinds of cases that can come to restorative justice, if there's a gun involved, whether it's used or not, it can't be sent to us.
Okay. Thanks for that. All right. We're running out of time. I want to get to at least one more question. And probably what I'll go to is, what are some of the biggest challenges in the youth justice work that you just see? And then if I could just tag on to that, which I realized we hadn't talked about, but where you see opportunities for hope. I feel like we've got to incorporate some of that as well.
Yeah.
The challenges and the opportunities.
Yeah, I'll say that the challenges that not only like just us as facilitators and folks faces, but challenges even like the young people that we support through this work it could vary to a bunch of different things, it could be challenges where as though young people are trying to get a job, but it's hard for that young person to get a job because they agreed to they agreed to plead guilty on this case, so now they're trying to better their lives, they're trying to do things all the right ways, but they keep getting rejected, so now they're at a stepping stone to try to figure out what they want to do, and that leads to that young person most likely reoffending and getting reincarcerated, all because they are getting rejected when they're trying to better their lives. And another thing is like, again, like our young people come to our programs and everything like that, and they feel safe. They feel like they're hopeful, and they have promising futures. But also, it's still reality, yes, that this young person has to go back to his urban neighborhood. He has to go back to that environment where is like a whirlpool that just drags you in and sucks you in and spits you out. So that's another thing that I would say like our young people faces, but also like what I mean by us as facilitators, we have to go out in the real world as well and still have to watch our environment and make sure that we're safe getting home and all those type of things. So I'll say that. And what you said, what do we hope for?
Yeah, it's always good to try and end up
Yeah.
in a positive note.
Yes. We truly just hope that we could save as many young people as we can, and that there's better things and systems out here for our young people to go to instead of just resorting to our young people getting locked up and incarcerated. Is diversion programs out here, invest into these diversion programs out here, invest into our communities out here. I know at a time, like when I was coming up, it was so many at the school programs or so many things that you can do to better your lives. And this era that I learned from my mother. I wasn't around at this time, but it used to be like trade school and things that the kids could do in high school that instead of them going to more school, they could learn these skills and things and whatnot in the school. So that way that when they're fresh out of high school, they don't even have to do more school. They already learned it in a high school. So I'll say that.
Wonderful.
I'd like to chime in just with a challenge and a hope and something that I think we can all do. I'm the development and communications coordinator here at YASP, and I think a lot of the work that we're doing is really thoughtful, and we're working on getting better at it and deepening and expanding the work that we do, which is not always the flashiest thing. It's not like a new program or an entrepreneurial investment. And so I think one of the biggest challenges that I face is communicating to donors how the work that we've been doing solidly for the last 20 years is really like the work that keeps movements going. We're like ensuring our systems are the best they can be and making sure our staff is taken care of. And we're working in coalition with all of our partner orgs. And these are all really important parts of keeping this work moving forward, but that is not always what funders are particularly enticed by. And that is on top of what we already know is kind of a tough funding landscape at the moment. But I'm really proud of the work that we do for like long-term strengthening and the ways in which we do it. And it can definitely be a challenge to get kind of consistent and longer term funding, which is really what we need. But I will say on the hopeful side is I think that given this moment and the lack of government funding to organizations, is that a lot of people have been really showing up and have been really committing to organizations in their area. And that has been really amazing to see. I feel like we've seen really creative ways of doing fundraising and really creative ways of coming together and really creative ways of sharing resources. And that has been really exciting to see. And I would just recommend everyone get involved in an organization in their area. You're welcome to come get involved with us. And yeah, I think that is like a really hopeful part of this moment.
Thank you so much, Stella. And I want to thank everyone from YASP for your wonderful presentations today and for sharing so beautifully about your work. You know, as for the Sentencing Project, we're honored to have you as colleagues and partners in this work. What I know more than anything right now in this moment is that we need to lean into one another. No one individual, no one organization can accomplish our missions and accomplish all of our dreams around ending mass incarceration and without partnership. And it's one of my missions and goals in the coming year, in the coming years, to continue to honor our community members and our partners and uplift their work and support their work, including financially. And so it's so important that we hear about all the great work that all of us support one another and be better partners and to dig in ourselves and contribute ourselves as much as we can. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure you check out YASP, check out the Sentencing Project, and continue the good work that you all are doing. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.